Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for our 30 on Thursday webinar, Office 365 SharePoint Online Security. Just a little bit about Protiviti before we get started. We are a global consulting firm providing solutions to business problems in technology, business process analytics, compliance, and internal audit. Our full-service enterprise content management team has helped hundreds of clients realize the value of SharePoint and Office 365. We were also announced as Forbes Magazine's Best 100 Companies to Work For today. Our 30 on Thursday webinar series is in its 6th year now. We are a 30-minute webinar series where we talk all things SharePoint, Office 365, and enterprise content management. Our next webinar will be on March 23rd, where we will be talking about using new Office 365 analytics to track user patterns. You can register for that webinar and see our full event schedule on our website. Our Protiviti On-Demand team provides on-demand Office 365 and SharePoint support. Our team can provide everything from performance troubleshooting, system health checks, business intelligence, user experience, and more. You can schedule a free 1-hour introductory consultation with a team member today by emailing us at ecm@protiviti.com. Today's session is being recorded. You can access the recording of today's session and see all of our past webinar recordings on our YouTube channel. For questions during today's presentation, you can use the question window in the GoToMeeting toolbar or live tweet us your questions using the hashtag 30TSecurity. We will be saving all the questions until after today's presentation. Today's presenter is Andy Arellano with Protiviti and also a member of our Protiviti On-Demand team. And I am Julia Marple and I will be moderating today's session. Andy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, very good. Thank you. So, excuse me, let's see. All right, you should be able to see my screen. Julia, can you confirm you can see this full screen?
Yep, looks good.
All right, very good. All right, so I won't bother you with this introduction of who we are. Julia did a great job of that. We'll just briefly show you that there are some more 30 on Thursdays coming up here, so something to attend if you enjoy this. So I want to talk about 365 security, and it's just really amazing the number of tools that are being created out there by Microsoft to help us better understand and control who has access and what levels of access, and then getting reporting on that. So 365 is really like an Active Directory domain on steroids, where you've got all these great tools like information rights management, which would normally take an entire team to get configured, and it's all there for you. And the cost of an information breach, we all know, we've heard this for many, many years, that if you get hacked, it's going to cost not just millions of dollars potentially, but also it's going to cost your how people view you, the image that your company has in the public space. So there's different levels that we want to talk about here that you should understand that for a 365 environment, these management levels. And so whether you have something, a global admin who runs the tenant and controls the entire instance, and then security compliance roles that are available as well. So the security and compliance is something pretty new that's taken in place of where you can do e-discovery and things like that that maybe an Exchange person used to do for you on-prem. SharePoint admins, of course, which we all do daily. And site collection admins, a different part of the SharePoint instance, but still important and have a lot of power and can do a lot of things, good or bad. And of course, web admins, so maybe they just have one website, like an HR department, that small website that maybe has 3 or 4 subsites and some pages on it. And of course, business users are involved in all different areas of this. So the biggest thing we want to keep in mind is just compliance, and then knowing who has access and controlling that, and making sure that the right people are at the right roles and levels. So here's what it looks like from kind of in a hierarchical view. So you have your tenant we talked about, and then you have these different roles in there that you assign to people. So whether that person's managing Exchange or they're doing discovery, e-discovery, and maybe document retention, so it'll be in this compliance area. Or if they manage the SharePoint, the term store, maybe how you tag things. Or if they're managing search, so who's configuring the search results and the managed properties. So maybe they'll be somewhere here in the SharePoint area. Of course, the tenant is going to have users who have to have licenses, and then groups. And those groups might be coming in from your Active Directory domain, and they'll be used in different areas. Maybe you assign a group to a role. And then nice thing about SharePoint Online is that if you do want to share with external people, we can do that very easily. And so you have to be aware that external users are going to be in at different areas and control that and be able to audit that and respond appropriately if someone's in the wrong area. So when you log into SharePoint, you see this, or Office 365 in general, you see the waffle on the left-hand side, and it's got a ton of icons now, these tiles. And they're growing and growing. And based on the level of access you have in this SharePoint environment, or in 365 in general, you'll have maybe a lot, like this, where I'm the tenant admin, or you may have just a few. Maybe you were just assigned Power BI, and so that's all you see. One of the new tiles here is the security and compliance, and so it's newer, and you're being pushed towards that. And it's a great tool, really, where you can do things like e-discovery. I mentioned that. So you can easily scan not just all your emails, but also everything in SharePoint. And you can do, this is inside the files themselves. So does anybody have a file uploaded with sensitive data? There's social security numbers that we accidentally posted. You know, we've seen that in the past where people have done that. It may not be intentional, but this helps us if we run this type of tool to discover that. And of course we can set retention, so that way we can tell documents to be gone or be deleted in 2 years or 3 years. If we have our company-wide retention is 5 years and we don't have to keep anything after that, then get rid of everything from 6 years and on, or 5 years plus and on. So that this is an area that you're going to do that, and it's very easy to configure. So when you click that tile, you'll end up over here, and this is just the home page, so it's nothing new or something that we have to drill in and look at every little piece here. But just the big thing is that we know on the left-hand side, these are going to be our major areas to manage. So Microsoft makes it very easy that you come in this area where you might call it the quick launch, it's got some major links, and under each one of these will be 4 or 5 actions that are related. So we're here looking at the security compliance area. And part of that, of course, when you get in here, you have to assign people roles. And so this has its own set of roles. And so you can put people in as overall managers, like organization management, or you can put them just as an e-discovery manager. Then they can make their own discovery. So that maybe you have somebody who's in charge of Exchange, and they can do their own discoveries, look at every email that has the word password or PWD or SSN in it. Or you can do the same thing with SharePoint. Grant a SharePoint user or an admin this e-discovery manager role, and they can do the things for the SharePoint side and do the audits. It's really just all about due diligence. As long as we can show due diligence, that means that we're doing our jobs and we're being proactive and we're taking advantage of the tools out there to be within whatever type of compliance regulations you might have. So I mentioned you could do retention. So you can do retention on mailboxes, and you can also do retention in SharePoint document libraries. So this makes it very easy for you. The retention policy that you might see there, I'll just mention, is just something where you say for all documents in this site collection, so maybe it's the HR site collection, anything older than 3 years, delete it. Or you can say save it. So they have templates created for you that you can use for SharePoint. They're already pre-created. You'll see some of these templates here. They've done a lot of work to make this easy for you and to get user adoption. There's even a jump-off point here from that security and compliance to do mobile device management. So you've got this mobile device management so that if people are connecting into your tenant on 365 and we need to, maybe somebody's leaving the company and it happened suddenly and we didn't know this was going to happen, well, we can wipe out their corporate data from the mobile phone if we needed to. Or even as part of the normal process that when you leave the company, we do a wipe on the corporate data, which makes sense. So you've got this mobile device management now being configured or available for configuration and testing for you here in 365. You can disable access for people here for the devices as well. So you got the data loss prevention. So there's things like you can do a data loss prevention might be that I'm in the financial regulation industry, so I can't put any routing numbers or account numbers up in SharePoint. Or we talked about Social Security numbers, and so there's a bunch of predefined ones. These are all a bunch of templates. And so whether you're in the UK or if you're in the Middle East, there are templates here for you and for your company so that you can very easily set up this data loss prevention. It'll notify you if something's out of compliance. And so I mentioned that here's these compliance policies. And you'll take one of these compliance policies, and this My Site one would be, by default, is configured for something like 3 years. And you can apply that into every My Site, and so anything older than 3 years gets deleted. If we keep the data for 15 years, then we know that adds up. That's gigs. In 365, eventually it's going to add up to more costs. And so it's just good practice just to get rid of the data that you don't need. I mentioned this e-discovery from the Compliance Center as well. So this is really nice, where you can go ahead and you configure very simply, just say new policy. I called this one password, and I put in there, do a search for anything that had PWD, the word password, or the word login ID, anything related to security that I wanted. When then I ran it, it runs very quickly on a small environment. But based on the amount of content you have, of course, it's going to take longer or shorter. But it's something where you set it and you come back, and then when it's all finished, then you go ahead and export it, and you save it to your desktop, and here are the results all zipped up. And you can see that there were 10 locations where we found passwords. And so maybe it's not about dinging somebody, it's just about staying within compliance. It's about making sure that we're doing everything we can to protect the data that's out there. And so we can notify the people that take some action and get rid of these certain files that they've got sensitive data. But the export piece of this and then the analysis on that is really nice. So more security. Back in our site collection, we're in the regular site collection for SharePoint. We're either a tenant or a SharePoint admin. So we see, in this case, we'd be a tenant admin, and we can see this admin piece. And we click this gear from the SharePoint waffle. And then now we're here. We're back at the top, and we're looking at all the different pieces. And so inside that area, we have these major services being provided through the cloud. So you have, of course, Exchange, which Mail and SharePoint. You have OneDrive, the Power Apps, Flow, which is a really neat way that you can integrate and have workflows monitoring, say, for example, mailboxes. And then whenever a certain mail comes in with a subject and a header, or it's from a certain person, we can do something with that, copy it to SharePoint very easily. So, but here in the tenant area is where you can manage all these major services. And of course, our big ones are SharePoint and Exchange. So we talked about that users are going to be assigned roles, and so you have to have these active users, and we're going to grant them licenses. Well, it's important to know who has what roles, and so that way you can stay within licensing boundaries. So maybe you only can have 5 people on Power BI, and who are they? Are we using 2 or are we using 5? Just truing up like we do on Prem anyway. So for each person, we can go ahead and edit them, and we can grant them roles. And in this case, you might want to grant them Exchange or SharePoint. You can also grant them a custom role. And so for a custom role, we can go ahead and grant them access to everything. If you've got someone working for you as a support staff or personnel, then maybe they're in charge of SharePoint, so you give them this access only. Or if they work in Exchange, you'll give them that access only. But again, it's important to know who has what roles, and so you'll want to use something like PowerShell to go in and quickly give you a report. And so once this is configured, you can automate this, and you can maybe you look at this quarterly, and you just make sure that the right people have the right roles, that we don't have somebody who's left the company still with high-level access in our 365 environment. And so we can do that through PowerShell with things like Connect MSOL service, which will get us connected to your tenant, and then get MSOL user, so that's the Microsoft Online users, give us a list, and then we parse it and just get certain properties like, this person is an Exchange admin, and this one here, they're a company tenant admin, and so on. There's another important link here back at the main area where you can do security and privacy. But the important thing about this is we're still in the tenant, at the tenant level, so we're at the high level. But what's important here is that this is where we can set external sharing. So if you want to start partnering with people out there and you want to use sharing, this is where you do it. And then people can start logging in with a live account or with a Hotmail account. It's very easy, and they can participate in things like discussions, give them access to documents, collaborate, and all of that. But you have to configure it here at the global level. You can also set password policies. So length of passwords, how often they change, and details like that. So here at that global level, we turn on sharing. Now we can start having partners come in. But this is only one place. But it's very easy to turn on and just slide the bar. Let's start sharing. So let external people in. Of course, links from the tenant, we have the Exchange admin area. And maybe just the thing to point out here is that if you have the Exchange role, you'll see that they're pushing you towards the new compliance area, security and compliance. They want you to do your discovery over there. So if you were a SharePoint admin, this is where you would be. And so certain people will have the role of SharePoint admin. And this is where, if you had somebody coming in and you wanted to have a great search experience, let's say you wanted to make it look like Netflix, you wanted something that's comparable to Amazon. Well, we'll have to create result properties or manage properties and result sources here in the search, and we'll need access at this level. So that way every site collection can actually use the same search configuration. And also if you wanted to connect to like on-prem data, we wanted to connect to a SQL or an Oracle, PeopleSoft, we'll have to use this BCS in the secure store. So you'll need to give your staff or whoever's supporting you access to this SharePoint admin role, and then they can come in here and configure the secure store in BCS and get you hooked up. Of course, this is where we manage our SharePoint site collections. So we have the SharePoint admin role, and we're going to be able to create site collections or extend storage on site collections, do things like here under sharing is where we can say let people come in externally to this site collection. So this is the second place that we would do that. And then things like set site collection owners. So a site collection owner is kind of like a building owner. If you had 10 buildings, well, one person's in charge of the building with the keys. He's going to be the site collection owner. So the people in there should be people you trust. Here at the SharePoint admin area is the second level that we would use to configure external sharing. And so here we can let anonymous people come in even, where we can send an anonymous link to a document and they can read it with that. You can put here how long that link will last, so they can use it for maybe 3 days and then it goes away. You can only accept people that you invite and that have a live or a Hotmail account with different levels to share with. But this is that second level. So we did it at the global level, then we do it at the SharePoint admin level, then we have to configure it on the site collection. A little tedious, but it's for your protection so it doesn't get enabled just too easily. And we talked about this and using the site collection and then enable sharing on it. I think a good thing that we recommend quite a bit is maybe separating a site collection and having that dedicated for sharing. So that way you don't have to worry about maybe some sensitive data in the HR or the executive staff area or a board area being seen, not even accidentally. So if you separate it out to its own site collection for sharing, then you can avoid that and have a little bit more comfort and control. So talked about configuring owners for site collections here. We're still at our SharePoint admin area. So it's just set the primary and secondary. If we need other owners, other people who should have the keys to the building, then we'll do that at the site collection itself. So again, PowerShell is a nice way. We need to give people access. They have to be able to manage a SharePoint environment for you to make it usable and take advantage of all the different resources there and the capabilities. But you should maybe quarterly do an analysis of who's are my site collection administrators. Are certain people in here that shouldn't be. Sometimes they don't have enough rights, and that's frustrating, and maybe they're not able to do their job correctly. So there's that side of it as well. So using PowerShell, we can do things, again, like connect SPO service and get SPO site, and then we can see for that site who are all the tenant admins or the is owner property of them. And we can see that certain people will be site collection administrators and validate that they're the right ones. And this is just looking at the SharePoint admin area again, things that you can do there. We talked about already. If you want to have an Amazon or a Netflix-like interface where you know best of the best in search, well, we're going to need things like managed properties. We're going to need to update the search schema, which is the managed properties area. We'll need result sources. So maybe you want to roll up all the policies or roll up everything that's configured or considered a blog and then present that nicely. So you'll need a result source to do that. And this is where you would do it at the SharePoint admin area. So from the SharePoint admin area, we can click any site collection, and it'll open up a new tab for us, which is nice. We still stay on the same area, but we can click the link, and we get a new tab opened up, and now we're looking at site collection properties. And so we would be here now. We just finished looking at all the stuff under the SharePoint admin area. So now we're looking at a site collection. And again, different areas to look at security. So we talked about site collection administrators having the keys to the building. But it's important to note that even external users can have full control and even be site collection administrators. So maybe that's something important, that if you are doing external sharing, has anybody been granted access that shouldn't be, at that level? Because that gives them pretty much access to everything if you put them in here. So here we have external user, and you can see they're a site collection administrator. So we can always verify what level of access people have, and you can do this one by one. We know that. So manually you could go to a site collection or a site, and we can hit this in the site settings area. We can hit site permissions, and then we could see, is somebody in the owners group, which will have full, or is somebody in the members group, which will have contribute. But it's a little tedious, but it does work. And you can go in here, you can type someone's name, and you can see this person's got full control given through the team site owners. It's important to keep in mind that in SharePoint, just like a folder structure on a file share, every site collection has webs, and then every web can have unique permissions, and in every web, every list, and even in the list, the items. So if you upload 10 documents, I can have 3 with a certain set of permissions for users in Group A, and I can have all the rest for users in Group B. So it's very detailed, and it's hard to keep track of who has access to what. The best way to do that is going to be using code. So we can maybe go through and look at everything where there's broken inheritance, meaning this web isn't like all the rest, and then we can verify that that web is the admin web or the IT web, and the right areas, the right libraries are secured in the right way. So if you were to go through any object in SharePoint, you can always stop inheriting permissions and then remove all permissions and assign your own. So that's where we talk about broken inheritance. You stop inheriting, you broke it. So again, each site collection has all these webs under it. So you might have the top level site, so my company, and then you have web 1, and then there's another web 2 with subsites under that. And any one of these, even web 2, can have its own set of security, totally different than all the rest. And maybe that's the place where somebody added an external user at way too high of a level than we wanted. So we're looking at webs right now. And they act just like site collections, and they have lists and libraries in the exact same manner that we talked about already. The one thing about a web is if you do break inheritance, you get the chance to go ahead and set up your own groups. So you can set up your new groups. You can either use existing groups or new. The recommendation would be to create new groups dedicated to that site. So maybe here you would have HR owners and HR members. Whatever the name of the web is, create your own groups for it. And then grant them the right level of access. So you can see here these members will automatically get to contribute. Some great tools out there to manage and audit permissions, and so ShareGate is one of them. It does a really nice job, and there's some built-in reports in there. So once you get ShareGate installed and configured, then we just update the report so that you can run them repeatedly and get this right type of information. Again, it just helps you to keep in compliance with some due diligence that we know that even on every half a year or biannual, you're getting a full permissions audit. So Docket as well is another great one that has permissions built into it. And you've got all these other ones too, so you've probably seen these, AD Manager Plus from Manage Engine, Quest Tools, Boost Solutions, which would only do on-prem. We use PowerShell a lot, and there's a few reasons for that. It's because it's cost effective, so meaning you're not going to spend 10K or 5K for this. It's going to be 1 to 2 hours. So you should get your reports back with who has access or auditing all site collection administrators or all the roles or something like that very quickly. It's repeatable, meaning that we can schedule it and reuse the same script, so we don't have to come back again and redo everything. We can use the same work and maybe just make slight modifications to it. So it can be scheduled, so if you have an internal server, you can easily just go ahead and create this and then have that mailed over to you, and you get the report in a quarterly or, like I said, whatever that frequency is that you want. And then you can also apply a misconfiguration. So if we know that there's 6 people that need to be site collection admins on every site collection, and that's it, well then we can go ahead and apply that, remove everybody out, and make sure those 6 are in there. Things get changed as you work through different projects, and so it's easy to overlook something, and maybe we want to have that baseline where it's our existing 6 admins need to be in here at all times, and that's it. And Julie, how are we doing on time? Because we don't have to cover this piece, and I think it's our last slide.
No, I think we're good. Go ahead and cover.
All right, great. So just mentioned to you that Active Directory rights management. And so there's an example would be we had a client that needed to have a certain library locked down, and so they wanted people to be able to read items in there, but not download them and not copy them, not move them anywhere. And if they did, they wanted to know. And so this rights management does that for you. It's that type of functionality or security, and so it's in compliance, or it offers compliance with all these different regs on the right. And so if you're in health, then it's the HIPAA, and if you're in government, then FedRAMP. But this rights management is well known and configured in these larger organizations like this, and it's for these reasons that you can let certain people read and everyone else won't be able to. It doesn't matter. You won't be able to come in and change the permissions on it. It's how you set it at this level, so it's overrides, and then allow certain users to even edit it or even download. Maybe you say nobody can download, so then we'll configure that in the IRM, and that'll take place. And then if you do send something to somebody, like say you share something out, we can audit things like when it was read and when it was read and who it was read by. So there are some requirements for it. So you do have to do this E3 and above subscriptions, and you have full directory synchronization between your on-prem domain and Azure. But if you're in an E3, it's probably true anyway, that you're probably syncing up your users just to make it easy for people to log in. Something with DirSync like that, or ADFS. Okay, that's a lot of info, and I hope that wasn't too quick for you, but I think we're recording this so you can come back to it and take a look at it, and we can take any questions you want at this time.
Great. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, just put them in the question window of the GoToMeeting toolbar. We did have a question about the recording. The recording will be posted on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ProtivitiSP. It's up on the screen. And you can also see any other Office 365 and security-related blog posts on our website, ecm.protiviti.com. If anyone has any questions, just insert them in the question window. We'll wait a few more minutes. Someone just asked Andy how to debug an issue with PowerShell. That's kind of a vague question.
It depends on what that issue is.
Yeah, let's see. He says it's a search or a USP issue.
Yeah, a search or a UPS issue?
Mm-hmm.
And this is for on-prem then, right?
Office 365.
Oh, okay. Is it that, I guess maybe we can take that offline, and we might need a little bit more information on that.
Okay.
You can do something like there's a search query tool that you can use, and you can see whether managed properties are created correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Like a UPS, that's going to be people's profiles, either their pictures or properties coming from Active Directory. And maybe you're wanting to see these in some location, and so you're not seeing it when you do search results. So that's going to be something where either property's not coming across, so you need to, maybe you do get SP user and you look at all the different users, and then you get their properties inside the UPS. So you can connect to the UPS and download everyone's properties, including their picture URL and everything else. And then maybe you'll see that department's not being populated properly, and there's a reason for that.
Okay. Andy, I can give you the name of this person, and you can follow up with them. They're asking more questions about managing user groups and things like that. So I'll give you their information, and Andy will follow up with you about that. All right, we had a question about CPE, and I will follow up with you about that. And I think that is about it. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. We really appreciate it, and we will see you in 2 weeks where we talk about Office 365 Analytics. Thank you, Andy, for the great information today.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.